Ever felt the presence of something unexplainable? Stay tuned to uncover chilling tales from others who have.
It was supposed to be the perfect Christmas getaway. Just Jake and me, a tent, and the untouched beauty of the snow-covered forest. We'd been planning it for weeks. The air was crisp, the stars were brighter than I'd ever seen, and the valley below us sparkled with distant lights like a Christmas card come to life. We set up camp in a small clearing surrounded by towering evergreens. Jake got the tent up while I built the fire, and soon we were roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. It was everything I'd hoped for. Peaceful. Perfect. But just past midnight, I woke to a strange tap, tap, tap against the tent pole. I froze, my breath fogging the cold air inside the tent. The sound was deliberate, like someone gently knocking. "Jake," I whispered, nudging him. "Did you hear that?" He groaned, rolling over. Probably just snow falling from a branch. It didn't sound like snow. The tapping came again, 3 sharp knocks this time. "Tap, tap, tap!" Jake sighed, grabbed the flashlight, and unzipped the tent flap. The cold hit us instantly as he shone the light outside. Nothing moved. The snow around the tent was untouched, the trees still. Even the fire had burned down to glowing embers. "See? Nothing," Jake muttered, zipping the tent shut. I tried to relax, but as I lay back down, I felt a faint vibration beneath us. It was so subtle, I thought I might have imagined it. Just as I convinced myself it was nothing, I heard a soft, almost imperceptible crack in the distance, like a tree splitting under its own weight. Jake was already drifting off, so I stayed quiet, telling myself it was just the forest settling. A couple of hours later, the next sound woke me. This time it wasn't tapping, it was a scratching, a slow, deliberate scraping against the side of the tent. "Jake," I hissed, my heart pounding. "Wake up." He stirred, annoyed. "What now?" "Listen!" The scratching paused, then resumed, like fingernails trailing across fabric. My skin crawled. Jake grabbed the flashlight and unzipped the tent again. This time he stepped outside, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the fog. There was nothing at first, but as he scanned the trees, I saw it. A figure standing just at the edge of the clearing. It was barely more than a shadow, its shape blurred like it was part of the mist itself. My breath caught in my throat. "Jake, do you see that?" I whispered, stepping closer to him. He froze, his flashlight trembling. Before I could say another word, the figure turned and disappeared into the fog. A sudden gust of icy wind rushed through the clearing, and somewhere in the distance I heard it again. A crack, louder this time. The ground beneath us gave a faint shudder, enough to send a small puff of snow sliding off a nearby tree. "What was that?" I asked, my voice shaking. Jake didn't answer. He was already heading toward the car. "Let's just sleep there," he said, his voice tight. When we reached the car, though, we found something strange. A large branch was wedged under the front tires. "This wasn't here before," Jake muttered, crouching to inspect it. As he struggled to free the branch, I felt the ground vibrate faintly beneath my boots. It wasn't enough to knock me off balance, but it sent a chill down my spine. Snow shifted nearby, a small cluster of pebbles rolling down the slope toward us. "Jake, let's go," I urged. He managed to free the branch, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. We returned to the tent, but unease hung heavy in the air. The next sound was impossible to ignore. It was a thunk, 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 louder and more forceful, shaking the tent poles like someone pounding on them with their fists. "Jake," I whispered, my voice cracking. He didn't hesitate this time. He unzipped the tent and stepped out, flashlight in hand. I followed close behind, and that's when we saw it again. The figure was closer now, standing near the fire pit. It raised an arm, pointing toward the car. Then it turned to the slope above us, gesturing urgently. Its movements were frantic, almost desperate. "What does it want?" Jake whispered, his breath visible in the freezing air. Before I could respond, the ground beneath us shuddered violently, and a low rumble echoed through the forest. Snow and rocks began to slide down the slope, small at first but quickly gaining momentum. "Run!" I screamed, grabbing Jake's hand. We sprinted toward the car as the rumbling grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. The figure stood near the car now, pointing at the road ahead. Jake didn't question it this time. He threw our things into the back seat and started the engine. As we sped away, I looked back just in time to see the hillside collapse. A massive wave of snow, dirt and rocks swallowed our campsite in seconds. The roar of the landslide was deafening, shaking the car as we drove. When we finally stopped at a safe distance, I could barely catch my breath. My hands were trembling as I turned to Jake. "That thing, it saved us," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Jake nodded, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. "Yeah, it did." We looked back toward the destroyed campsite, half expecting to see the figure one last time, but there was nothing, just the mist curling through the trees like a ghostly shroud. Later, when we told locals about what had happened, they told us a story. Years ago, a landslide had claimed the life of a lone hiker in those woods. They said his spirit still roamed the area, warning campers of danger. I don't know what we saw that night, but whatever, or whoever it was, it saved our lives, and thanks to it, we lived to see Christmas morning. If this chilling tale gave you goosebumps, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. Thank you for tuning in to Ghostly Echoes. Until next time,